Welcome to the Candidate Forum put on by the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights. My name is Regina Gomez, and I am from the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, and Buffalo Grove. Founded in 1920 as an outgrowth of the movement giving women the right to vote, the League of Women Voters is a national, nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or political parties for any office. The League's purpose is to promote civic responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Providing this forum allows citizens to become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. We are happy to provide this service for the community. All of the candidates were contacted by email and/or phone prior to today. The candidates have agreed to abide by the ground rules provided by the League of Women Voters. The rules will be summarized by our moderator. This program is being recorded. Those watching are muted and are not visible to the candidates. We have some questions prepared, but we encourage the audience to ask questions that relate to your concerns and thoughts about the Elk Grove Village Public Library. Questions will be reviewed by League members to avoid duplication and for clarity and appropriateness, and to try to ensure that they are not directed to any one candidate, but can be answered by all the candidates. To send in questions for the candidates, please text 847-701-4701 or email forum, FORUM, LWV-AH-MP-BG@gmail.com. That's forum.leagueofwomenvotersarlingtonheights@gmail.com. Our moderator for tonight's event is Luz Nisi, an emerging leader. He is a member of the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, and the Buffalo Grove area. He does not live in Elk Grove Village. We will now start our candidate forum. We ask that you bear with us and note that technology is what it is, and we are all working our best to ensure that this runs as smoothly as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Gomez. With me on screen, we have our candidates, Michael Urban and Emily Glimko, and our timer League member, Nancy Jones. I would like to note that the Q&A chat functions have been disabled for all attendees. So if you would like to submit a question for the candidates, please text this number, 847-701-4701, or email forum.lwvah@gmail.com. Those should be additionally on the screen for you to see throughout the candidate forum. The candidates have agreed to abide by the rules set forth prior to this forum. The rules of the forum are as follows. Speaking order has been randomly determined. Candidates will alternate speaking order, so a different candidate speaks first when answering questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their introduction and 1 minute to answer each question. At the end, each candidate will also have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will see the time counting down and will be given a 15-second warning. Time limits will be enforced out of respect for all candidates. Candidates, please pay attention to the timer. When you see stop, you may finish your sentence. Candidates have been asked not to interrupt one another, and I am happy to repeat a question if asked. And you are also asked to speak to the audience, candidates. The 2 candidates are running to fill 3 seats of 6-year terms on the 7-member Elk Grove Village Library Board of Trustees. 3 candidates, Mary Vitale, Ellen Valentino, and Renee Wayland, chose not to participate in this forum. Early voting begins on March 20th and election day is on Tuesday, April 4th. Please plan to vote and encourage your friends and neighbors to do so as well. We will now start with opening statements. The order is as follows. We will start with candidate Urban and then move on to candidate Glimko. Candidate Urban, you may begin. I believe you're muted, candidate.
There we go. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this forum. My name is Michael Urban, and I'm running for Elk Grove Library Trustee. I am a long-time resident of Elk Grove Village and business owner of Windy City Breakers LLC, a small business. I've been a LGV-PL, Elk Grove Village Public Library card holder since 1992. The library is a critical asset of the village that needs to be protected for future generations. I will serve with the highest integrity and dedication. I will bring transparency, efficiency, and accountability to the library board. Make sure agendas are public within 72 hours of a meeting. Make sure meeting audio and minutes are uploaded to the website in a timely manner. Propose broadcasting meetings live on Channel 6, EGTV, and YouTube. Maintain library catalog, protect library investments. Bring back programs such as Read to Succeed. Oversee projects to assure prompt completion, and propose a library family-friendly community concert series events with storytellers, puppeteers, small theater acts, etc. I am Elk Grove first. I've always been. I love Elk Grove Village. Like I said, Elk Grove Village Library is a critical asset that needs to be protected. Thank you, library, for being a good asset to the village, but it's very critical that it needs to be protected.
Thank you. Candidate Glimko. I think you're muted as well.
Should be good now, I hope. Okay. Hi, my name is Emily Glimko, and I'm running for a 6-year term on the Elk Grove Village Library Board. I have lived in Elk Grove for 8 years, since 2014, and I have worked in libraries for 7 of those years. I should mention too, I got my card as soon as we had the documentation to prove residency. I am running for library board because I have the right skill set as a former library worker who has spent 7 years working on marketing and community outreach. And I want to actively support our library to ensure that young families like mine have their needs represented on the board and continue to have access to our wonderful library for decades to come. My entire library career was focused on promoting libraries to their residents to increase library use and increase patron engagement, as well as focusing on understanding the needs of the community. Excuse me, even now that my career has transitioned from libraries into the world of municipal government, my focus in my career is still entirely on community engagement and connecting residents to resources that matter to them. I bring that same line of thought to the library board as a potential candidate. My background gives me a lot more working knowledge of how libraries operate than your average library candidate or library trustee candidate might be. I know how libraries are funded. I know how they operate. I know the opportunities and challenges they face because I've seen it as a library worker over the past 7 years. I know how to evaluate how well a library is performing. I understand the value of patron feedback. I have experience revising policies and developing strategic plans, and I had been a board member for the Illinois Library Association Marketing Forum for all 7 years of my career. So I am very invested in libraries as a person. I'm very invested in our community, and I would love to give back by serving on the Elk Grove Village Library Board.
Thank you. I'm going to share our first question tonight, which will be answered first by candidate Glimko. Describe a successful library. What metrics would you use to evaluate its performance?
Sure. I think a successful library is one that is well used by its community and makes everyone feel welcome at the library. And data tells that story pretty easily. You can look at circulation numbers to evaluate a collection. You look at door count, program attendance, meeting room usage, and all those other things to get an accurate picture of how people are using the library. I used to create the monthly statistics reports. I'm very familiar with the data that libraries collect to demonstrate their impact on their communities. Sorry, as far as a successful library goes, I think it's really important to evaluate the community's feedback and look at what the community wants and needs, because data is always going to be there, but the voices of our community are just as important as the data that libraries collect. So I think a library is responsive, or successful library is responsive, communicative, and also makes their decisions based on data.
Thank you, candidate Urban.
A successful library includes the library going out to the community and finding out what they need, and also diversifying books, newspapers, magazines, big or small, it all needs to be heard, needs to all be told. There's a story for everybody. The community has a library that's a critical asset. And for it to work, it needs efficiency, accountability, and transparency. It needs to maintain its catalog and to bring back programs such as Read to Succeed. They have literacy programs that really help the community, and the library is a crucial part of the village. And I look forward to serving on the board in that capacity.
Thank you. For our next question, candidate Urban will begin. What is your vision for the future of the library, and how do you plan to ensure that the library is a vital and relevant resource for the community?
To maintain the library, you need to look at the catalog, look at the investments the library has made in the past, keep those in check. Also, like I said, bring back programs like Read to Succeed. Also, to oversee projects, to make sure they're done in a timely manner, timely fashion. Right now, the library board doesn't have an agenda within 72 hours on the website. That is a critical part of the library, so people know what's on the agenda, what's going to be talked about. That's also another way for people to attend the meetings, because right now attendance at the library board meetings is extremely low or nobody whatsoever. I want to bring transparency, efficiency, and accountability, and I think that's a way to make a successful library.
Thank you, candidate Glimko.
My vision for the library's future success involves building upon its existing success. The library was just named a 5-star library through Library Journal because of the hard work that the staff members have put in and all of the creativity and passion that they bring to their work in the library. So I would want to continue the things that the library is already doing. I think that our library does a really great job of being adaptive. I think that we've made a lot of really great strides in the last few years to adopt new technologies, such as the holds locker outside the library that allows patrons to pick up their holds whenever it's convenient, even if the library is closed. The library website was recently updated and is much more user-friendly now. So when I think about the future, I look at what we're doing now and say, this is great, let's continue, let's be open to new ideas, try new things, and continue to be responsive to the community. And I will mention too, a part of being a board member is to ensure stable funding for the library. So I would advocate for that as well to preserve the vision of the library's future.
Thank you. For the next question, candidate Glimko will begin. The question is, how would you handle a request to remove a book from the library?
When people request to remove a book from the library, there should be a policy in place that allows them to raise their concerns. That's perfectly normal as a public library. However, in most recent book challenges, a lot of books end up being removed because of their ties to the LGBTQ community based on people's personal biases and political agendas. But to me, the library is a public library. That means every member of the public deserves to see themselves represented at the library. They deserve to have access to a wide range of books about people that are not like them so that they can continue their lifelong learning and be open to new perspectives. So for me, when it comes to removing books from the collection, I think that you have to fall back on the library's procedure and reference the collection development policy, but ultimately, you have to look at the intent behind those requests and see if that is in line with the library's values of being open to everyone.
Thank you. Candidate Urban.
The library needs a diversified collection. If a book, magazine, anything that is removed needs to be discussed, there needs to be feedback from the community, from library patrons themselves to understand what is being removed. When it's removed, there needs to be forthcoming by the board and say, these are the ones that we're seeking to be removed, and seek feedback from the library patrons through the newsletter, through the website, and be forthcoming of what is being removed. Without that, there's no transparency, accountability. To make a great collection, there needs to be a diversity of collection. So if something needs to be removed, it needs to be talked about, the policy needs to be looked at, and go from there.
Thank you. Candidate Urban will be the first to answer our next question. Explain why high quality technology is or is not a factor in the achievement of a library's success.
High technology is incredible nowadays. It is very crucial to the success of the library. More and more people are doing things online through Zoom like this, and other entities, other ways of means of communicating with each other. It's very crucial nowadays since the pandemic hit, and they're going through, and at the end tail of it now, people are still accustomed to using those services. And it's very crucial to use those services to either use patrons for the online services, online programs, anything that has to do with the library. Those are critical services the library needs to use to have sustainability going forward.
Thank you. Candidate Glimko.
I think technology can definitely be a factor in a library's success. In our increasingly digital world, access to technology is required in a lot of aspects of life, but it's not something that's always accessible to people. And that's very easy to forget if you are someone who has a laptop at home. I think back to earlier this year, my family did not have a laptop at home. And whenever I needed one, I could come to the library and check one out to take it home. And it was such a lifesaver for me. Even though that need was temporary, the fact that I could rely on my library was just incredible to me. And I think that, technology absolutely does have a place then in the library's success, not just in circulating technology, but, we would need to evaluate whether, do we have the right amount of computers in the computer lab? Are the, technology that's available in the library, is it modern? Is it up to date? Is it functional? So yes, and I think that technology can be very much integral to a library's success.
Thank you. Candidate Glimko will go first for the following question. What do you believe are the most important issues facing the library, and what specific actions would you take to address them?
In today's climate, we're seeing more book challenges and book bans than we ever have. There's been a sharp uptick in challenges recently, and our state is no exception. Book challenges have been happening across suburbia. So so to me, preserving the freedom to read is one of the most important things that a library can do. Preserving the freedom to read says that everyone has the right to decide whether a book is the right fit for them or not, and retains access for everybody to review those materials. So the actions that I would like the library to take to preserve the freedom to read would be to evaluate our collection development policies, make sure that they're up to date, codify staff support that, say that the library and the board trust staff to use their expertise to make the right decisions, but also make sure that there is a policy in place for people to review materials. And I think that the library's policy should formally include the ALA's freedom to read statement as well.
Thank you. Candidate Urban.
To give people the freedom to read and have literacy programs, you must have the best programs available. Have accessibility to those programs. That's very crucial for those library to be successful and the programs to be successful. And with that needs to be diversity, no matter if it's LGBT, people that are handicapped, disabled. Anytime a voice is spoken, it needs to be heard. It's the accessibility of the library, which brings the freedom of reading, and that needs to be protected for future generations.
Thank you. Candidate Urban will go first in the following question. What challenges does the continued growth of internet usage and AI pose for the library? And what will you do to prepare for or mitigate those challenges?
AI is incredible technology. It needs to be embraced, but at the same time, people need to understand what comes with AI. With that, the library needs to be transparent of what program they may implement going forward with AI. AI is here to stay, of course, and needs to be implemented in the library the right way and used the right way. AI, as of recently, had some trouble with chats and all that and with apps. And it's very transparent for the library if they're going to be using AI technology to use the right technology, and the patrons to use the right technology to be successful as a library.
Thank you. Candidate Glimko.
In our increasingly digital world, I think libraries are always tasked with staying on top of what's happening. So one way that I think that libraries need to make sure that we are prepared for this continued usage of the internet is to really lean into virtual services and make sure that library offerings are up to the same standards as other organizations that are out there. Libraries are constantly having to fight for relevance in a day of Amazon and Netflix. And so making sure that our services are able to be accessed virtually, that everything works well, I think is very important. On the subject of AI and just the increasingly digital world in general, I think libraries also have an opportunity to help educate their patrons about those changes that are coming to our digital world and help inform patrons about what AI does, what restrictions it has, what ethical questions there are with the use of AI. So libraries can both prepare by making sure that their virtual services are working very effectively, but also work to educate patrons on rising technology issues.
Thank you. Candidate Glimko will go next for we'll go first for the next question. How would you rate the library's ability to fund current and planned programs? And if additional funding is necessary, how would you obtain it?
Sure. Without having access to the library's budget documents, I can't say for sure what my stance is on our funding levels. However, as a patron and as a taxpayer, I believe that everything is going very well and seems to be funded adequately. I feel that the library's rate is very reasonable, and I feel that the library is making very good use of our resources. I'm sorry, could you repeat the part of your question again?
Of course. How would you rate the ability to fund current and planned programs? And if additional funding is necessary, how would you get it?
Yes, of course. So if the library needs additional funding, and you can make a case for that through data, through careful planning, that is a case where you may have to go to the taxpayers and levy additional funds from property taxes. That is something that I think can be a really touchy subject for a lot of people, but when it comes to supporting really critical community resources, I think that conversation can often be necessary, and it requires a passionate library advocate to make it happen, someone like myself.
Thank you. Candidate Urban.
The 2023 yearly budget is $6.5 million. That needs to be used in a rightful manner. There needs to be accountability. We need to work within our means. If something needs to be expanded, if something needs to be increased in such of a tax levy, that needs to be talked about. Also, with this $6.5 million budget, there's also needs to be transparency about it. Like I was talking about earlier, right now, the library board does not put their agenda on the website within 72 hours. It's mainly the same day as the meeting. So there's no time for a patron or somebody to come forward with an agenda item or talk with an agenda item because it's short notice. I will bring that to the board, bring transparency, efficiency, and accountability to make the library successful.
Thank you so much. We would like to remind everyone who's with us tonight to please send your questions in. We're looking for some more questions, but we do have plenty for the rest of the forum. You should see on the screen the number to text the questions to and the email which you can send them to. Thank you. So we're going to move on to the next question, which candidate Urban will start. What role do you think the library has to promote safety for its patrons?
All patrons need to be safe at all times. Bottom line, period. All patrons need accessibility to the library at all times and to feel safe at all times. No matter if it's at extra security, whatever the library needs to do to keep patrons safe. Me as a library board member, if elected, will be in charge of implementing such policy. And I'll be on site, making sure there's accessibility to the library, and also everybody's being kept safe in a safely manner. The library is a haven to a lot of people. That's their go-to place after school. People need accessibility to it, and at the same time, like I said, feel safe. And what they're doing there in terms of homework and meeting friends, family, and going on computers and using the library in general.
Thank you, candidate Glimko.
Sure. As far as the library's role to promote safety goes, I think that safety within the library, both for patrons and staff, is paramount. Libraries should ensure that their disaster procedures are fully up to date, that all staff are trained and can guide patrons to make sure that they are taken care of during any kind of severe weather emergency. I also look at a code of conduct as a behavior aspect as well. If the library's code of conduct is well written, then any kinds of unsafe patron behavior would be mitigated swiftly in order to make sure that everyone else in the library felt safe. I also do feel that libraries, like I said, have an opportunity to help educate their public, and libraries are especially great for partnerships on programming. So when it comes to safety that you can execute or that you can practice at home, that's the kind of thing that the library can welcome community partners in to help spread the word to keep our community safe, both in the library and beyond as well.
Thank you. Candidate Glimko will go next for the following question. What do you see as the top 2 challenges facing the library at this time, and how would you address them?
Sure. I think that some of the issues that the library may face is that I think that there is definitely an issue with transparency in the library. I would like to see the board policies on the website, for example, so that the public has an understanding of how the board operates. And I think too, the library has a really exceptional strategic plan for the 2020 to 2022 years that talked about the importance of getting to know the community's wants and needs and establishing better communication with the community. But as a taxpayer, I'm not really sure how the strategic plan has gone. It's 2023, the strategic plan should have ended. And I would be curious to know more about how those strategic initiatives were met and the community impact. Because if something has not been met, then it needs to be addressed. But sorry, I lost my train of thought and I'm out of time.
It's absolutely okay. Candidate Urban.
Can you repeat your question?
Of course. What do you see as the top 2 challenges facing the library at this time, and how would you address them?
The first one I would say is transparency. Not having the agenda on the website within 72 hours and basically having the agenda on the website on the day of the meeting is totally wrong. That would not happen under my watch whatsoever. What that comes is efficiency and accountability. I will bring that to the board. And also, the second issue is maintaining the library catalog and its programs. Back in the day, I used to attend Read to Succeed. My niece also attended Read to Succeed. It's sponsored by the Chicago Wolves. It's a very crucial program and very successful program that the library could lean back on and have that crucial services to make the library a safe and accessible building for all genders, all people, all races, all creeds, for everybody to attend and enjoy.
Thank you. Candidate Urban will go next for the following question. What are the 3 goals that you personally want to achieve if you are elected as a library trustee?
Like I said just a second ago, it's transparency is the first one to bring that to the board, to make sure people know what's on the agenda so they can have a voice. Second is to bring diversity to the library, no matter if it's LGBT, handicapped, disabled, everybody have a voice, big or small. And also, the third is to be outgrowth first. I've always been outgrowth first. I've lived here all my life. And I'm actually one of the original outgrowth youth commissioners back in the day to originally form the youth commission in Elk Grove Village. And I was in the Boy Scouts, and I know how to take a group of people and to be a leader. And I look forward to serving on the board and make the library a very successful place. And outgrow first all the way.
Thank you, candidate Glimko.
As I've mentioned before, as well, transparency and clear communication are really important to me. I think that the library board definitely needs to make some improvements in that area, especially by putting board policies on the website and ensuring that minutes are posted accurately. They're often delayed. I also want to see a proper space audit done for the library to make sure that we have an understanding of how the library is being used, and to make sure that our space is being laid out effectively, to see whether different areas of the collection need to be brought out. Additionally, that to kind of go with that as well, something that I think about a lot is user experience. I want to make sure that the library's next strategic plan has something very user experience focused, to drive staff to take a really hard look at all of the services we offer and look for the obstacles and look for the friction points or things that people just aren't happy about, and do what we can to address those needs. And finally, a small thing, I would really love to see the shelving in the children's area improved. There are a number of books in bins, and I don't feel that that's a good browsing experience or is good for the quality of the books. I'd love to support better shelving.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with candidate Glimko. Please describe a time you had to work with a peer who had a different approach or point of view than you on an important issue. How did you work through it, and what was the outcome?
I'm getting job interview flashbacks. Sorry, off the top of my head, I struggled to come up with a specific example. So instead, I will tell you what my approach is when I do find myself in a situation where I disagree with somebody. First, I think it's really important for everybody to be able to voice their opinion and to talk with one another about, what is driving your reaction to this? Why are we not on the same page? Where are our differences? What concessions can we make? How can we come together and figure out something that works for all of us? I think on a board, there's always going to be times that you don't agree, and that's okay. And that's even encouraged, because that's how we get good dialogue going. But what matters at the end, even with your disagreements, is that, at least in a board setting, that you can come together and put your differences aside and say, this is the decision that we came to as a group. So that is the way that I approach those kinds of situations.
Thank you. Candidate Urban.
Can you repeat your question?
Of course. Please describe a time you had to work with a peer who had a different approach or point of view than you on an important issue. How did you work through it, and what was the outcome?
As a library, we need to have diversity. I've worked with all genders, everybody, all races, all creeds. Everybody needs a voice. And when there's when there's a disagreement, there needs to be dialogue. No matter if it's somebody saying one thing and another person saying another. There needs to be dialogue between those people. And when I was on the youth commission way back in the day, there was bunches of discussions of what we're supposed to do as a youth commission. And I was very open to dialogue of what one particular commissioner wanted to do and what another person wanted to do. And we come together as a group, and we charge forward, and we need to come together and be strong.
Thank you. The next question is, describe your vision of the library in 2029? So a little bit farther out, we'll start with candidate Urban.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes, it's not quite a question, but please describe your vision of the library in 2029, what you think it's going to look like 5 or 6 years in the future.
5 or 6 years in the future, that's a long time from now. I see a very successful library. I see a library that it's going to be have leaps and bounds. It needs to be protected for future generations. We're a 5-star library, but with a 5-star library needs to be transparency in terms of what is on the board's agenda, what is being implemented, what programs. There needs to be dialogue. There needs to be people coming forward. There needs to be a feedback, essentially, from the public, from patrons, to understand what the library could provide on a daily basis. And there was a survey taken some time back, and there hasn't been one since. And I would implement that to make sure the programs and everything has been implemented right for the patrons and make sure their needs are met.
Thank you. Candidate Glimko.
My vision for our library in 2029 is one that has put in several years worth of focus on evaluating the patron experience and making sure that patrons are put first in every single service that we provide. I think it can be really difficult to anticipate even as short as 5 years out. I mean, when we look back at the pandemic, that's something that libraries were not necessarily prepared for and had to adapt, our library included. I know for sure that no matter what happens, that our library will be able to adapt because of all of the efforts staff made to create a curbside service while the building was closed. But also with the pandemic, the last community survey that was done was before the pandemic, and a lot has changed since then. So I would hope that in 2029, the library will have completed a community survey with statistically significant capturing of the folks who live in our community, and that the library will have made active strides to improve user experience and respond to community needs.
Thank you. The next question is, what are your ideas for making sure the library is able to meet the needs of its diverse youth and adult communities? Candidate Glimko.
I think the most important thing is to kind of put your money where your mouth is with your values. And I do think that our library does that. For example, I know that the library was recognized back in 2018 for having, I believe, the most youth Spanish books in a library of our size. And that's not a small feat. I know that our library does actively work hard to make sure that diverse books are in the collection and constantly provide opportunities for people to learn about each other. So I really do think it starts with representation in the collection. From there, it also goes with your policies and how you handle book challenges that are around titles that, book challenges that are related to the LGBTQ community or members of another race. And the way that the library handles those challenges says a lot about its values. And so I would expect the library to support those in any book challenge.
Thank you. Candidate Urban.
Can you repeat your question?
Of course. What are your ideas for making sure the library is able to meet the needs of its diverse youth and adult communities?
First of all, the library needs to be accessible for everybody. And there needs to be a dialogue for everybody. Everybody needs to have a voice. Nobody needs to be shut down with their voice. It needs to be diversified. People feel like they belong at the library. People have to feel like they could come forward with their feedback and bring their ideas. That's what's crucial to the library be successful going down the road. As a board member going forward, if elected, I look forward to implementing such programs and such survey to get the feedback of the patrons and make sure the library is running efficiently for everybody that attends the library at any time.
Thank you. The next question is, what plans do you have to promote sustainability at the library? How can the library be an example that addresses our need to be one with our environment? Candidate Urban.
In terms of environment, what's,
Yes, I think the central question is what plans do you have to promote sustainability, environmental sustainability at the library?
it's a good question. Transparency and accountability come with that, and efficiency, making sure the library is running smoothly at all times. Patrons need to feel safe. There also needs to be accountability in terms of budgets and how we work with our means, and if things are hitting their mark, and if it's not, it needs to be looked at. I feel a lot of those things are not talked about because the agenda is not on the website in a timely fashion, and even the audio to the meeting and even the minutes are not put on the website in a timely fashion. So if you have those things, you could have a successful library, not worry about the other things.
Thank you. Candidate Glimko.
I think our library is really special in that our library already does a lot to encourage sustainability and, care for the environment within our community. We have very green focused programs at the library. Very often the Living Green and Elk Grove Village group works in tandem with the library all the time. The library even will bring recycled materials to the farmers market and use those for crafts for kids. I think that the environmentalism that is already here is so special and should be nurtured. And I know that part of that will be coming through a renovation project to the landscaping outside. I know that there's some sustainability in that, but I think our library would have a lot of opportunities to partner with, and they already do partner with the Living and Giving Garden, Living Green and Elk Grove Village. I think that there's a lot that we can do to build community around the idea that we need to be one with our environment, and the library can be that catalyst because it's already gotten started because of the passion and dedication of library staff.
Thank you. The next question will start with candidate Glimko. Which library board subcommittee will you ask to serve on? Which special skills would make your serving on the committee a good fit?
I would ask to serve on the Community Relations Committee. Community relations is quite literally in my job title. I am the community relations coordinator for the village of Roselle, and not to mention the extent of my library work experience has been about community relations. That is something that I would want to focus on a lot because I think that it can be easy for boards to get a little bit bogged down in what's in the board packet, looking at the bills for the month and nitpicking the charges that are there. That's not something that I care about as much as hearing from our community and, having an understanding of what they view the library is. Do they feel that their needs are met here? Do they feel welcome? I want to know more about those things. And I also want to make more connections within the community. Like I said multiple times, I think the library is a great partner for our community groups. And so I think community relations would be a great spot for me to be able to really hit the ground running and help our library do a lot of great things.
Thank you. Candidate Urban.
I want to be involved with all the groups and commissions, every single part of the library board. It's very crucial for those commissions to run smoothly, and I'm very hands-on. I'm Elk Grove first, and I want to be involved no matter if it's with this committee or if it's that committee. I want to be part of it all, and community relations would be a great committee to be on, to talk with the community in terms of feedback and what the library needs to go forward in terms of going all the way to 2029, in terms of technology, books, computer labs, even the shelving that was talked about earlier needs to be looked at, and the diversification that the library could bring forward with any committee. I don't know if there's any committee that I would truly want to be on, but I want to be on all of them because I want to be hands-on, and that's the way to go.
Thank you. Candidate Urban will answer the next question first. How would you direct the library to do outreach physically out in the community?
Well, I would go door to door. I would start with that, and also have a survey that's sent door to door. No matter if you live in an apartment, condominium, townhouse, house, it all needs to be sent to everybody and get their feedback, no matter where you live. For a long time in the village, only the home owners, the property owners get a say. And the condominium owners, residents, the townhouse residents don't really get a say. So I would open it to everybody, no matter where you live. That needs to be implemented. So all voices come to the table. That is very crucial for the library to be successful for the years coming and even future generations going forward.
Thank you, candidate Glimko.
Successful community outreach is all about meeting people where they are and taking a really critical look at your community to recognize which areas of your community may be underserved. If there's an underserved area of our community, that's a big priority when it comes to community outreach. And again, when you meet people where they are, you can make those kinds of connections and talk with people one-on-one to build a relationship with them. Additionally, other ways that you can increase outreach within the community physically is to do things like have library staff or volunteers attend community meetings to talk about resources that are available at the library or new aspects of the collection. Same thing with school tours or school or visiting schools to do a special library story time. I think that there are a lot of opportunities for the library to get out there. They're doing it already a little bit with the farmers market, and I would love to see the library pop up in more places around town, especially locations where parts of our community may be underserved currently.
Thank you. We're going to have two more questions and then move into closing statements. Candidate Glimko will go first for the next question. Please share your perspective on how board members should weigh the varying input they receive from the community regarding access to information, free press, and free speech, and how these factors will impact your decision in policymaking.
Sure. I think, I'm sorry, would you be willing to repeat the question just briefly?
Of course. How, as a board member, will you weigh the varying input that you receive from the community regarding access to information, free press, and free speech? And how will those three factors impact your decision and policymaking?
Thank you. So I think that it is always important to hear your community out. I mean, we, as a public library, we serve the public. Hearing from the public is always very important. I think when it comes to weighing the varying inputs, you do have to look back on the library's mission and value statements, as well as the policies that exist. Boards should make decisions in line with their policies and in line with the mission and values of the library. So that's kind of the easiest way that I can think of to weigh varying input. As far as access to free speech and information, that to me is something that is one of the most critical things that a library can do. Libraries are all about sharing information. And I think there's a big opportunity for libraries in general, as well as Elk Grove, to help educate our patrons on what information literacy looks like, what news literacy looks like, what media literacy looks like, to make sure that our community is informed in our increasingly digital world where misinformation is unfortunately running rampant. So I think that the library, or free speech and everything like that, is exactly what a library stands for in its value of sharing knowledge.
Thank you. Candidate Urban.
Free press, your voices need to be heard, period. That needs to be implemented. There needs to be dialogue amongst all people, no matter if it's a certain conservative or liberal idea, it needs to be on the table. All voices need to come to the table to have dialogue, to have a successful library. Without that, you're only going to have one voice, and that's going to be the library board itself. With me on the board, you're going to have people come to me. I'm going to be an outreach to the community, have a successful feedback from the community and how to use that to bring a successful library to fruition and bring diversity and all voices to the table.
Thank you. For our final question, we have kind of a fun one, and we'll start with candidate Urban. What book have you read recently, and how did it change your outlook on any topic?
The most recent book that I read is actually not a book. It's a magazine. It's Beckett Magazine, sports magazine. I'm in the sports card industry, and I recently just read the current February edition. We're going into March now, of course. but that was the last one that I read. I find sports very interesting. I'm in that type of business. It has very nice articles about sports teams and collecting. That is something that I think the library is kind of lacking on in terms of bringing collections and little diversification in terms of those aspects, and really collaborating with artists and people and voices, and bring that to the library board and the library in general.
Thank you. Candidate Glimko.
The last book that I read was a reread. I tend to reread my favorite books for comfort, and most recently that book was Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. I am a big fan of dystopian fiction, and Margaret Atwood is kind of queen of that realm in a lot of ways. But the reason that I enjoy dystopian novels is because it gives you the opportunity to look at our world and think about the possibilities. And obviously, dystopia, it's not always the greatest possibilities, but then that inspires me to think, how can we make sure that things like that don't happen in our world if I don't want to see the outcome in a dystopian novel happen in real life? And that further drives me to become more educated on issues around environmentalism and politics, things like that. So yeah, honestly, it has been a while since I've read a new book. I've been in a kind of a rereading funk, but I think that that's also equally important for people to take comfort in books and have their favorites and be excited to talk about them.
Great. We are now going to move into the closing statement portion of the evening. Candidate Glimko will go first. You will each have 2 minutes to give your closing statements to the attendees and anyone who might watch this recording in the future.
Elk Grove Village has a long history of dedicated volunteers that serve the community for decades. My family's roots are here. My family's not going anywhere, and I want to follow that example that our community's leaders have set of volunteering for things that you're passionate about and sticking to it to better the community. And that's why I feel that my work experience makes me the perfect fit for a library board member, because I have industry knowledge. I understand already how libraries operate and how they're funded. And not to mention too, my years in libraries were more than just a job to me. My experience in libraries solidified my love for libraries and taught me things about libraries that I hadn't known before. And I was so inspired by that every time I learned something new within my career. Working in libraries is what gave me my fierce desire to protect the freedom to read, and gave me the desire to want to connect with other people, whether as part of a career or as part of volunteering. I've demonstrated my ability to collaborate with others through my involvement with the ILA Marketing Forum Board, as well as leading the programming as part of the team for the Library Marketing and Communications Conference, which reaches a national audience and always has to stay up to date on the latest happenings in the library world. I've been endorsed by the AFS-CME Council 31, which is the libraries union here at Elk Grove. As a library worker, I understand the impact that library workers have. The library, while the policy is set by the board and the board oversees everything at a very top level, I understand that it is the library staff that are the ones going out there, making connections, building programs, and building the collection. So I would be excited to support their new ideas and be kind of a voice for them as well. But in any case, I am invested in our community. I'm invested in libraries, and I can picture no better way to spend the rest of my years in Elk Grove, growing up with my family, with my young children, and growing alongside the library as a board member.
Thank you. Candidate Urban.
I would be honored if I was elected to the library board. I'm a lifelong resident of Elk Grove Village, and I know what it takes to have dedication to the village. I'm Elk Grove first, I always have been, no matter if it's a village issue, a library issue, or park district issue. With being elected to the board, I will bring transparency, efficiency, and transparency on day one. I will make sure the agendas are on the website within 72 hours of a meeting. And also I will maintain the library catalog and make sure it's diversified. All voices are heard. Free press is heard, no matter who it is. And if it needs to be removed, that needs to be talked about. That needs to be looked at the policy, and all voices need to be at the table at all times. And also, I will protect the library investments that the library has to make sure that the library is investing their money in the right areas and making sure that the library is providing the right materials and also having an adequate computer lab, no matter what. I love Elk Grove Village. Like I said, I've been here all my life. I've been a card holder since 1992, and I would be honored to have your vote on April 4th, punch number 5. Early voting starts March 20th, Monday, and that goes to April 3rd. My name is Michael Urban, and I'd be honored, like I said, to be an Elk Grove Library Board trustee.
Thank you. I'm going to pass back to our MC, Dr. Gomez, for some closing remarks.
Thank you to Luz Nisi for being our moderator. Please make sure to register to vote, make your plan to vote, and then make sure your voice is counted on April 4th. Need information? Check out our website at www.lwvah.org for voter registration information, mail-in vote information, secure Dropbox locations, as well as your early and day of polling locations. Please visit the website illinoisvoterguide.org, where you will see what is on your ballot, plus candidate responses to League of Women Voter questions. And for any of you looking to support this year's election to make sure it's safe, secure, and accessible for all, we have a link to the Cook County Clerk's website where you can sign up to be a poll worker. Again, check us out at www.lwvah.org and follow us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We even have accounts specifically for youth at student.lwvah and a mascot at Pause for Votes! We are grateful to you for joining us and to our candidates, Michael Urban and Emily Glimko, because our democracy relies on citizens like you who are willing to run for office. Thank you to all of the League volunteers who brought you this free program. The recording of this forum will be available on the League of Women Voter Arlington Heights YouTube channel. And good night.